Gautam Adani. Now you mentioned, which I didn't know, and we spoke offline about it. 2611, he was.
He was in the Taj, and I mean, he has a very philosophical look about it. The God will look after and all.
Apparently,
he manages to get out safely.
But is it true? He tells everyone that we will survive this.
Yeah, he does tell everyone. This is from accounts I've read, because he has never publicly
this is
spoken
true leadership
about
qualities.
No, it's a leadership quality. To be calm. In a situation like that requires enormous gut.
No, tying this up again to their performance in life. The fact that under severe physical...
And have a karmic belief, that you're going to come out of this somehow. No, that's something definitely worth admiring,
I think he'll sponsor the show now. I got him or Anil for sure. Mukesh, I don't know. I haven't said good enough things. You need to increase the Mukesh bait.
He called his father a very simple man. That famous story about Dhirubhai and Bobby Ghosh, my friend.
Oh, gotta tell that story. Please tell that story.
My friend Bobby Ghosh was with Business World magazine, and I was at India Today at that time. Nariman Point, circa 1988-89 I'm talking about.
Cyrus says is the name of the show, but today we have an erudite philosopher, writer, an actual learned professional who's probably very modest and doesn't want me to say all these things, but I've done some research. Oh, by the way, let me begin at the beginning. My wife Aisha told me that this has to be done because he's also a family friend.
Indeed, I am.
Because her mom and him were in New Era school together.
Yeah, but she was senior.
Okay. I knew you'd go for that. The old lady, I need to give her a little blow there. So there's a connection.
Yeah, she was my Icky auntie.
Icky auntie. And the funny part is that that's the only connection we have. No, two. Also the Gujarati connection. Let's start with the book here. I've got it in front of me. As you know, this is going to be the worst interview you've ever had. I promise you that. But it'll be very scattered. But I like that.
Okay, that's fine.
So this is the book. Okay. And I personally have grown up with Gujaratis. If I had to be honest, I would think the most number of people in my life would be Gujarati growing up. Because I grew up in, Nipinsi Road, Mahabaleshwar, Walkeshwar, where the poor live. And so for me, this is a fantastic book because at the top he mentions that Gujarati is not just what we think is ethnically Gujarati Hindu, but everybody who speaks Gujarati is culturally Gujarati or has even descendants from Gujarat in a sense. And it's a wide spectrum.
Yeah, I've always called it a language and not a religion.
Correct.
Most people think of Gujarati and therefore dominant caste Hindus and Jains, and everybody else is others.
And Undio and Dhokla.
But
there's more to it. Although Undio got a whole
You know what
chapter.
KFC stands for, na? Khaman Fafda Chora Fry.
Yeah, correct. I just read that. I was just reading the last bits in the car coming here. Damn it. Yeah. In fact, that whole bit is there with a lot of acronyms. We'll come to that. But let's start at the beginning. Firstly, what an exhaustive piece of work this is, ladies and gentlemen. You have to check it out. It's taken him 7 years to write. It was more than 1,000 pages. He edited it down. I know this offline. It's not like
No, my editor made sure that it was manageable. He said you want to make sure that people can hold it in their two hands and read it and not fall under,
That's true.
And the seam comes apart. That should not happen.
No, I have a theory on this, which is that if you really like the subject and it's riveting for you, the pages don't matter.
That is true.
You just keep reading because it's all, and it's in a sense made easy also because you're looking at different subjects at different times.
And the other great suggestion he had, and I think David Dividar, was to have shorter chapters.
David Dividar,
he edited
famous,
it, and which was to have shorter chapters. He said that if you have a very long chapter, people feel intimidated in a big book, but if you have a chapters which are like 4 pages, 8 pages, 10 pages, then people feel that what happens next, and they keep moving.
Sutaigo reader, why are you behaving so lazy? What is the difference?
It's the age of Instagram.
Really, I know you all are fighting against it, honestly.
Long form, 280 words, 280 characters, sorry.
280 characters.
280 characters in search of an idea.
In search of an idea which if you're not used. What is the thing you said about idea and Dhirubhai Ambani in the book? Read it again towards the end. Idea is nobody's monopoly.
Yeah.
It's what you do with the idea.
Yeah,
it's
what you do with it.
Accept
Absolutely.
That? Because when you talk of it from a creative point of view, it's like you've stolen my idea.
Yeah.
From a corporate point of view, it might be a little different. But I'm saying, like just a simple idea of a storyline, which can be one line.
But once Nasiruddin Shah had said that everything that is written or every film that is made is basically Shakespeare or Mahabharata or Ramayana.
There's the other theory, there are only 7 stories.
Absolutely.
Do you accept that? It's almost like...
There's 7 broad themes, let's put it that. Certain number of broad themes. I think that I'm prepared to say,
Wow.
Whether it's 7 or 9 or 10, I don't know.
Don't make art mathematical. It'll be very scary for me.
I know, it is.
I like the fact that it's just out there and, anything can happen. The romance of the fact that, it's literature. But this is a great piece of work. Okay, first and foremost, if you're Gujarati, that's 55 million in India, give or take, and a few million abroad. You have to buy this, huh? I don't think it's very expensive. How much?
1,500 rupees.
15 on the
But online you can get it cheaper.
Online you can get it cheaper.
Yeah.
Don't do the other thing and go to your friend Praveen Shah's house and borrow his. That has to stop now.
And if you borrow, return it. Yeah.
Return it and buy your own copy. No, they must keep this copy. Boss is to know, a lot of people don't care about their lineage, past, this and the connections, what makes you Gujarati. Pride, actual pride, not the pride that has been fostered by some politicians, which is also mentioned. So this is what our recommendation is, go and buy it. And if you're not Gujarati, but anyone growing up in India knows who Gujaratis are. We are led by a few of them. So all you have to do is get this book to understand not just Gujaratis, but India in general, because it touches everything. Lots on Gandhiji, who we can call Gandhi here, without showing disrespect.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned another lovely thing which I like. The writing is very balanced. I'm no critic, but I would like to say this, since Ranveer is busy. He's the head of podcasting in India. You mentioned Gandhiji and Gandhi, let's stop saying Ji. And you mentioned a search for truth and things like that, or you're quoting a writer. But you also said huge ego. Okay, now most people don't like to ever look at, holistically at all the greats. So they remain mythological, almost idolized figures, etc. And what I really appreciate was that, and yet there are a lot of compliments for what he's done and how he's done it. Because in that huge ego, there's also a man who shows compassion and gets people together.
Stubbornness for the right cause. Stubbornness can be terrible.
And the stubbornness came from
in Hitler,
ego.
But stubbornness can be terrific in someone like Gandhi.
Also, the paradox is like he didn't let his son marry a Muslim girl and all that.
And at the same time, he opened his ashram to Dalits without a problem.
Yeah.
And he always said, Ishwar Allah Tero Naam, and he always had a Sarva Dharma Pratana.
Yeah. And then, after 2 generations later, Manmohan Desai made the best films ever, trying to keep us together.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start at the top. I want to just get an understanding of, because we don't understand the descent into India or the migration into India, or what really happened. How did Gujarat come from? You use the Gurjars words, which is a little confusing.
Yeah.
Is it the same as the Gujars who came in Rajasthan and North?
They're probably of the same ethnic stock. Now, I'm not a DNA expert and I'm not a forensic anthropologist, so I can't get into that. It's way above my pay grade, those kinds of questions. But it is true that if you look at some of the early history, that region, Gujarat is one of the most diverse states in India in terms of the number of ethnicities that have come. And if you look at the anthropological survey of India, one of the things you find is that a large number of people who are in Gujarat can trace their origin somewhere else. It's not as if it's not as if people were just there and then a few people came. It's very likely that the majority came from elsewhere, and some of them were indeed Gujars. Some of them were, Muslims and Turks who came from elsewhere. Some of them came from the south. And even if you look at the Muslim community of Gujarat, there is, according to the Anthropological Survey of India, again, greater diversity in Gujarat
than anywhere else.
In India. And it's not just Khojas, Boras, Mebans and Ismailis, which is what we talk about. Yeah. But you look at Mianas, you look at the Maldharis, you look at Siddhis. It just gets, Hussaini Brahmins. I mean, term like Hussaini Brahmin, who would have known? Yeah. But you have those kinds of variations which make it an extremely diverse place.
But also, interesting thing is that, is it possible, I think it's mentioned there, that the Scythians, who are Persians basically, or some sort of Central Asian Persians, do they come from that lineage?
Some of them do. I mean, obviously, now it is all mixed up. So it's very hard to trace down and say that there is a pure breed of one kind or the other. I mean, that you will never find,
my question...
Tony Joseph's book actually looks into that, the early Indians, and we are all mixed up.
Yeah, but my question there is, because if they are from Persian descent, etc., why are they vegetarian? What the hell happened?
Because there are very few who are actually vegetarians. There's an argument in my book. When you say that 65% of Gujaratis are vegetarian, you take it with a chunk of salt, not a pinch of salt. Because you go to Bhatiyar Gali in Ahmedabad, where you'll see a lot of Hindus and possibly even some Jains going there and checking out kebabs and omelets at night. And then after that, eating a pan so that nobody knows what they've eaten.
This is true. Growing up in Walkeshwar, Chota, Gujarat, lots of my generation, the generation after, don't eat at home, but come to our house and eat everything.
Of course.
And they know exactly what's available.
In fact, the first fish I had was pomfret.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, and which was, a friend of mine gave it to me and he said, "Kevu lage che?" I said, "Batata na shak jevu lage che." That's what I said.
It is soft and tender.
It is soft and tender, and it was with masala.
Yeah. This is the point.
Tungareshwar, we had gone on a trek.
Yeah.
And this friend of mine offered it to me. Yeah.
Now, since you cut all the way to food, I want to ask you another story. There's one where you've left the fish inside the fridge.
Yes.
And because growing up again with Gujaratis, you don't have the meat in the house.
Yes.
No matter what happens. So tell us what happened there.
Yeah, so what happened was that I was with my kids and wife. We had gone to some Chinese restaurant and we had leftovers. So like good citizens who don't waste food, I had it, doggy bag. I brought it home and it was in the fridge. And it remained in the fridge. Next morning, my mother calls me and says that Ashu che. I said, this is fish. Why is it in my fridge? I said, I'm very sorry. She said, you can eat what you want. You can even eat at home, but not in my fridge because of the stink.
And she made you clean it.
She made me clean it, yeah. And there's a nice coda to it, because many years ago, when we didn't have Bombay Gas Company functioning properly, and my mum had to cook on a stove, the primer stove.
Right.
And I've written about that story also. And when she was cooking on a primer stove, she needed ghaslet, as we call kerosene. So once she heard paplet from the guy on the street who was selling pomfret. No? So she heard ghaslet.
Yeah.
She clapped him and said that, come up.
No.
And he looks at her with a Gujarati sari and big tikka.
Like
and he says, no, I'm not going to give it to you. So he said, but mane paplet joye che, mane ghaslet joye che, lav. So he said, but then it brings out a fish and shows it to her. And she said, chi and all that, and she said, I don't want it. She was on the third floor, that guy was on the ground. And then, so I...
Ghaslet! Paplet! It's very possible. They do
Absolutely.
That style.
And that's when I end by saying that, so in the end, a paplet or its cousin did make it into her fridge. And I had to pay for it in the end. Yeah.
Well, not really. As you said, she was disappointed, but not... you were worried it would be much worse than that.
No, but she was a liberal Democrat. For
sure. For sure. And
she was like, na khaunga, lekin aapko khane dunga. That variety,
What is that other line that I may not believe what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it. It's in that.
Yeah, Woody Allen also had something similar. I may not say it, but I will defend your right to be a schmuck.
Yeah, fair. That's talking about me. Okay, now let's go back to the premise of the entire book. As you mentioned in the beginning, is you tell us what defines Gujarati-ness or culture.
So there are several things. I mean, one is, and the one unique feature that keeps coming, and I'm not saying it's unique to Gujaratis because others also have it, is practicality and ability to compromise and ability to compartmentalize things. We are very easy, we will be fierce competitors and yet be able to have a nice common dokla at night together. Diamond industry is full of that, where they really, it's a dog-eat-dog kind of competition in the marketplace. Yeah. But many of them have intermarried each other. Correct. In the end. I mean, so you have that. And the ability to, not see the difference, that you might have extremely bigoted views, which you express on Facebook and Twitter and all that. But at the same time, when you have to do business, you will do business with the Boras and Memons and Khojas without batting an eyelid. You will have very strong views about not eating meat, for example, but you will run a corner store in Yorkshire, for example, where you will have frozen meat on sale. Right. You will measure the hemlines of your daughter's skirt, but you will have no problem selling condoms to teenagers in the American South at a corner store. I mean, you will, again, you look at motels, again, the same kind of thing. You will go to the remotest part of Africa and live among people who are meat eaters and have a grocery store, and not be worried about it.
So the color of money is secular, is what you're saying.
It is secular.
Anyway, that's a good thing.
Paisa bole che, na?
Paisa bole che. There's a whole chapter, exactly that, a famous quote. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So let's just discuss the various types. I mean, broadly there's so many, but Hindu Gujaratis, obviously, Kachis. Now, you mentioned my friend here, Prithvi, is a producer, is a Kachi. He's not that comfortable with Gujarati language. But
that's okay. Kachi is as close to Sindhi as
I know. But growing up, all the Kachis spoke Gujarati that I grew up with, at least in South Bombay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, since you mentioned the Saif Ali Khan story, let me just cut away and tell you, you'll be proud of my father. Because one day, Saif and I were standing outside the Bombay gym, and my dad came with my dog. We used to go to the Oval and stop the car. And I wanted to introduce Saif. So I said, this is Saif. He's a famous actor, and he's Tiger Pataudi's son. So my dad said, Tiger Pataudi no dikha. Wow. Then what do you do? And he actually, because he didn't pick up that he was an actor and had no idea who he was. Yeah. I think Saif was most happy because it reached a point in our shallow society where the actors and all would be famous. And
that's what happened, no? When Pataudi died, I think it was the Times of India whose headline was Saif Ali Khan's father dead.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
So this is what we've come to. So I'm glad you've written this book because you're putting perspective back where it should be. Right. So I interrupted you. I interrupted myself. So there's Kachis. There's Parsis.
Parsis, of course, are Gujaratis.
You have a soft spot for. You say Gujaratis have a soft spot for.
Yeah, very
not to be
much
communal, but for some reason, because they... in many ways they're not, but in many ways
they make other Gujaratis laugh with their theatre, right?
That's true.
No, I seriously
mean it. Adi
Mazban, Barjor Patel, Iraj Pavri,
yeah.
Sam Kerawala, they've all done that, yeah.
Sam Kerawala also you put in the list of greats. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So my point is that, and they've been, and one line every Gujarati wants to say from a poem is called Jhan jhan vase ek Gujarati, tyan sada kaal Gujarat. Wherever there is a Gujarat, it is Gujarat forever. Ardeshar Khabardar, it was written by a Parsi poet.
But it's also an English poet's line. line, no? Wherever there's an Englishman's sense of England.
There's a bit of England forever. Yeah, possibly. Yes.
But there you go.
Yeah.
So Adesh sir, so courage. Are you plagiarizing? No, I'm just kidding. No, let's talk about the Parsis now that we got into that for a second. So this whole story, not everyone knows the second version, which I think Shireen...
My friend Shireen Mystery told me that story. Yeah.
So let's give both the versions. The Parsis, after the Muslim hordes took over Persia, a few Parsis got away, took the fire, got into ships and came towards what is now Sanjan. Right? So that all is true. Up to there, we're okay. Then we're not sure what happens with the Rana. You take over.
Yeah, so they come to the Rana, and the more well-known story is that the Rana sends a jug full of milk, which is filled to the brim. And the Parsis put a bit of sugar in it and stir it up without spilling it. And the Rana tastes it and says, okay, they are going to sweeten this land. And which is the story we have all been told. I mean, there's a very famous poem by Uma Shankar Joshi in which this story appears. But my friend Shireen has put another version, and it's something that has been corroborated even by Harmony Siganpuria, who's a very fine academic in Ahmedabad. And nobody knows. This is like...
But is there some detailed documents?
No, there is a version of how they came, but it doesn't go into this story in detail. I mean, that's
how they were allowed to stay.
Yeah. So I'm coming to that. Yeah. So what the second version is that they take out one of the gold rings that they are wearing and dunk it in the milk, and it just goes in. The idea is that we will maintain our purity and we'll add to your wealth, but we'll remain who we are, and we will not get completely blended. And the story is that the Sanjan Rana also put some conditions that your women should learn how to wear sari. You should not convert anybody. You should wear the tikka, and you should learn Gujarati language.
Which is all happened. Also, they didn't intermarry. I think that was also a condition. That we don't, But so basically, they became Gujaratified, the Parsis, to a very big extent, but still kept some of their main culture, as in their food habits remain the same. Alcohol, even though I don't know in those days if there was, we don't know if the Rana allowed alcohol.
They called it Chhato Paani karwa jaiye. Is what Behram contractor used to tell me that Chhato Paani.
Yeah. What do you think? It could have been dry in those days.
No, the whole Chhato Paani culture came because of Morarji Desai. Because it was dry state at that time. And I mean, they have made amazing witty songs about Morarji. Oh Morarji bhai Dinkar Rao Desai, Mumbai ma રહેવા અમને ભારે પડી ગઈ. પરમ દાડે તાજ મહાલમાં ગડબડ મચી ગઈ. 2 મિનિટમાં મોરારજીની ધોતી નીકળી ગઈ. That was a song.
I hope you don't get into trouble. Somebody, Morarji Desai.
No, this was a song which was very popular at that time.
We are not responsible for the song. The song was popular.
The song was popular anyway.
Don't shoot the messenger. Messenger is just, passing on the message. So they come into Gujarat and they immerse in the Gujarati culture, I would suppose, or whatever, and they move on from there and continue to have a good relationship with whoever was running Gujarat, administration, etc. But if we cut away from them for a minute, there's also other invaders who start coming in, which you talk about. I'm fast forwarding because there's so much to talk about. I think Somnath, and I think we should talk a little bit about Surat, which was the capital of wealth, maybe, which nobody knows about.
And there were flags of 84 ports used to flutter on the banks of Tapi at that time.
So tell us a little bit about Surat, and also a very interesting thing that you put, and again, we're not trying to be controversial, but I thought we should talk about it, is that Shivaji himself ransacked the place a couple of times and scared the crap out of people who lived there. And hence the Gujaratis and the Marathas were not exactly friends going back. And this goes on right up till the birth of the Shiv Sena.
And it's becoming even more so now, because now Gujarati residential societies don't want Marathis to come and stay there because the Marathis would want to eat fish.
Right.
In a Jain colony or something.
Correct.
So that doesn't
continues.
Work.
But rewinding a little bit, tell us a little about Shivaji and Surat, and how they were happy with the Mughals in a sense. Is that fair to say?
No, so Shivaji had a not love-hate relationship, but a practical relationship with Mughals. Because he has been on the side of Mughals. Sambhaji, his son, has also fought with them, and his father has also had
he gets insulted by Aurangzeb in a court because of the position he was given, and then he
Correct. No, and he also hated at the same time. So what he decided was that he knew that Surat had wealth, and it was run by sultans, and it was under Mughal suzerainty. So in 1666 and 1670, he raided the town twice. And he would go there and raid. And what the people who want to bring the Gujarati Marathi unity, they will tell you that he only raided the mint of the Mughals and the East India Company docks. But he didn't touch the Hindu and Jain traders. Now, like all these stories, there's a granularity here. Because on his first raid in 1666, there's a novel by Icharam which goes into that in some way. Suratli Loot, it is called. He actually does attack some of the Hindu and Jain traders. So the second time, Gujaratis being very good at compromise, they have bought off the Maratha army. So they have already paid off. Don't destroy
sorry.
our stuff, but you do what you want to do.
He's Gujarati, he's allowed to say it. It's like the N-word.
Yeah.
We can't argue.
Yeah. No. So they
But
kind
this
of.
is also part of Jugaad. It's been there from the
So
beginning,
they said, here's a protection. Don't harass us. So what I found intriguing and interesting, I'm not making a value judgment here, that when I went to Dandi in 2016 and I come out at the Bilimora station, because that's the nearest station, the first statue I see there is of Shivaji. And I just thought there is an ahistoricity going on here, that people have a relationship, people have a memory, collective memory of a time when, the Maratha army was seen as a raiding army. And now what has happened actually is that it has been brought together in the larger
But
Hindu
you're
cause.
talking about a time when there was no sense of nationalism in a sense.
Yeah,
Maybe
correct.
we're running ahead of ourselves.
Correct.
So you're worried about your own roti and house, kapra
Absolutely.
and all that.
And the other thing that happened, which is also interesting to note, is that it's not as if that the Gujarati society as such had a dislike towards the Maratha, because one of the kings who has been really loved in Gujarat was Sayajirao Gaikwad in Baroda, who was a Maratha king. And he was extremely popular. He built the infrastructure of the city, and Baroda is one of the most
He also
beautiful.
Gujaratified himself, no?
He Gujaratified himself, yes, but at the same time, but he also supported Ambedkar for his education, and there were other Marathi speakers who made Gujarat their home. And two that I want to note, one is Dattatreya Kalelkar, who was called Kakasaheb Kalelkar, who wrote the Jodhani Kosh, the dictionary of Gujarati, at Gandhi's urging. And Gandhi used to call him Savaya Gujarati, which means 1.25 times Gujarati, which means better than you and me, better than us as Gujaratis, was Kalelkar. And the other was Mavlankar, who was the first speaker of the Indian Parliament, and his son Purushottam Mavlankar, who was an...
See, we are uniting India with this conversation. Do you understand what we are doing here? Superb thinking.
Yeah, he was in...
Marathis have hijacked the language, made it better, corrected it, and Gujaratis
and
are
become the
saluting
speaker
you.
in the parliament, and Mavlankar was the independent MP who defied the emergency. I mean, in the emergency, he was one of the few opposition leaders to stand up to Indira Gandhi, and that was Purushottam Mavlankar.
Did
And
he
from
stand up
Ahmedabad.
in Gujarati or Marathi? That's the question.
He probably spoke in Hindi in the parliament.
Damn you! Had a great chance there. Yeah. So the other thing, the historical perspective, there's so much I cannot cover everything. We'll cover what we can. But this historic perspective which I am interested in, Alauddin Khilji, and before that, Muhammad of Ghazni, is it? Who has the worst reputation?
Yeah.
With the Somnath Temple. Somnath Temple is such a big thing in India.
Yeah.
I just want to bring it, obviously, because of what's happening in India today and the, if you like, the revenge code that exists in a lot of people's minds. But you tell us the way you've written it.
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't there when it happened, right? It was 12th century, so of course not. I've been to the temple 3 times over a 20-year period.
Kept getting rebuilt and redone.
Yeah. So what happened was that in the 12th century, the first of the attacks takes place. And at that time, of course, the temple has been ransacked and destroyed. The question is how much? And that's where the whole thing boils down, because everybody says that Ghazni came and destroyed everything, and there's a story that they crushed the Shiv Linga and put it in
So
Paan.
is it like a thing to destroy the religious identity, or is it to take all the wealth?
Well, that's a great question, because the people who see it in religious terms say that they did it to destroy the Hindu identity, and there are people who say that no, temples were routinely raided by different
Gold,
kings
silver.
again, and it was and also it's not just the wealth of gold and silver, but also the sign of authority. Right? I mean, a temple is a very important thing,
So
and therefore
it's
you
a
go
symbolic
and
thing that you have to
that's symbolic
knock it down to
importance.
show that you are in charge.
Absolutely. So then, and then there is this another mythology around it, that there were these gates of Somnath which were taken away, which were taken away by Ghazni apparently. And Ellenborough was a British administrator, wanted to bring them back. And the one who warned against it was Macaulay. He said that you are going to divide Hindus and Muslims, and this will be a problem. And when the gates were brought back, the priests in Somnath did not want it, because
This is a
they
mini
said,
Ayodhya. This is a mini Ayodhya. Almost. Yeah.
And when the gates were brought back, the priests didn't want them, because they said these are not ours. And there is some evidence to show. I mean, I'm not the expert here, but some evidence to show that the wood that has been used for those gates is not native to India. So it could not have been. So it is probably...
No, but it's a trading colony of sorts. The wood could have come from anywhere back in the day.
It could have come from anywhere. So I'm not... But the people who are challenging it were actually saying that, maybe there were no gates.
So the ulterior motive was that they wanted to just make sure that there's no trouble. So they're saying, send the gates away.
And then what happens is that repeatedly Alauddin Khilji then wants to come and attack it again, because people keep rebuilding. It's almost a Sisyphean exercise, that they go up, it comes down, so you try to roll it up again. So the temple keeps getting rebuilt. But the one crucial thing to make in mind is the people of Saurashtra, and in a way their sense of perspicacity and judgment, because they could differentiate between the raider and the trader. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. That those who came on camels and horses and to come and attack, they knew were the enemy. But there were Muslims in the area for a very long time, on the coast. And they had mosques. And those mosques were never touched in retaliation. So when you're talking about the revenge argument, they would probably want revenge against the raider, but not against the trader. And I think that's the kind
But
of
if it's an
Gujarat we have
invader
to
like
learn.
Muhammad of Ghazni who leaves, how do you take revenge?
Yeah, well, you probably build better fortification and fight back the next time he comes. That's all you can. You're not going to go. I mean, you could do
Or
that.
remove his name from the history books.
Yeah, or remove his name from history book.
Yeah.
But the sad part is that his name has remained because it reminds Gujaratis of the past.
Yeah.
But the name of another Muslim ruler called Muhammad Begra, who
Who was
very
benevolent and...
benevolent, he built what we call stepwells, wow. He has built many vows across Gujarat. And there are plaques with his name on it, and people have erased it recently, saying that why should the credit go to a Muslim ruler for having done this?
Well, there you have it. Let's, before we fast forward to the modern era, let's talk a little bit about the fact that Gujarat was the center, perhaps Calicut also, Surat and these ports were the Cambay, etc. I mean, this was the heartbeat of India.
Yeah.
Or what we
Absolutely.
call modern India.
Yeah.
So take us through that.
But it's because Surat was, of course, as I said, there were 84 ports, flags were fluttering
Right.
in that town, and it was extremely prosperous. So was Cambay. But then what happens is that the marriage takes place between the Charles II and Catherine of Braganza, and the 7 islands of Bombay come to the Brits, and they start reclaiming them, and then they see the natural harbour, which is much better and much superior, because Surat is, after all, a river-borne port.
Hey, Gilcho, you're British. What are you talking about better? Have you seen? Come to South Mumbai, I'll show you harbour. What are you talking about? What did they see? Were they on their own opium? What's
Probably. They were trading it.
They were trading it, yeah.
Buying it in Malwa and selling it to Hong
So
Kong.
the Parsis.
Parsis and Gujaratis. Both were
course.
involved in the trade.
I thought
Jamshedji Jiboy and Premchand Roy Chand.
Yeah. This is something we've discussed with other people on the show as well, but it's just so fascinating because it's almost done clinically.
Yeah.
It's not done from point of view of promoting a sauce or something.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
just doing it as a trade.
Yeah, it
And
is a
in trade, everything goes.
Yeah.
Is it?
Because you want to buy their tea and the Chinese want nothing in return, so you give them opium.
Yeah.
And get them hooked.
Yeah.
That's why the opium wars took place in
This
1839.
plan is coming back, I'm told. Chinese dominance has to end. We've got this plan. Four
So
Parsis, two Gujaratis.
So we should send Gobi Manchurian in retaliation.
Hey, Chinese bail soch hai, Nikra. What the hell is that Chinese bail?
Absolutely.
What have you all done to food? Yeah, really. You've said somewhere that Gandhiji would have, woken up in his grave or something and seeing what is being devoured and what this cross-cultural, in a way it's beautiful. It's real globalization of food, but in some ways it's ridiculous. I remember.
We fry things in Fanta and Coca-Cola.
I
You know
know.
that. In Baroda,
Yeah. Also, the Parsi cuisine, some people say the palav and all, there's a bit of, ginger and raspberry and all put in. We don't know for sure.
I don't know about
Maybe
that.
it's true. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's like the story about the sweat of the UP guy who makes the sandwich and bhel puri. That if it's not there, it tastes terrible.
Yes.
Now, who's going to take a chance?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's jump to the more modern era of Gujarat and the role Gujarat has played. You've mentioned somewhere that 2.5 prime ministers, and we'll explain, are from Gujarati stock, which is fantastic when you had so many, in such a big country, just 50 odd million Gujaratis, and 2.5 coming out of, a dozen prime ministers. It's a fabulous ratio. And the half, of course, being Rajiv Gandhi.
Correct.
Who for some reason, even though his dad was Parsi, never claimed they didn't have the Navjot and all, but that's a story we'll have to look at some other time.
Yeah.
But our president Namoji, I will say G here because I have to go back home. And Muraji Desai you mentioned, who must be known for more than what he drank in the morning.
Yes.
We have to go beyond
No. He, to be fair, I mean, he was an upright leader, a very stubborn leader.
97% income tax. Bo upright, sir. Too upright. Bring the upright down.
Okay.
My dad used to tell us when we were young, 97%. And he created black money almost.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah. But I've always felt, since I go to Scandinavia quite a lot on work,
they have huge.
People don't mind paying big taxes and huge tax if you get something in return. And by something in return are good schools, good hospitals, and clean roads, which Scandinavia does provide.
Correct.
Here, none of that was happening. Healthcare, that's right. Hospitals and clinics, healthcare, that you do get in Scandinavia.
And what do we get? Bol na dikra. The 2 pages are blank at the back. Fill it in. So we'll take a quick break here for a second, then we'll come back and we'll look at, I want to talk about Gandhiji if we can. We'll squeeze in half an hour as much as we can because I like the fact that there's open interpretation of great people and see them from different angles rather than just idolize them, because actually it makes them greater.
Absolutely.
Just see them as human beings more than gods. We have to talk about the rise of the corporate world. 19 out of 100 of the top billionaires are Gujarati.
Yeah.
19 out of 100 people in the world. I mean, what a figure that is.
No, in India, certainly
In
the
India,
billionaires,
in India, yeah.
In the world, it's probably a little less because
Yeah.
you have
But
so
still
many Chinese are in
highly
it now.
proportionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Chinese also Gujarati, because of the
They're
open
Gujarati,
trade.
of course.
At Chinese bail, we've immersed the culture. I want to talk about cricket. Because we've got plenty of Gujaratis in and around the team now. Gujarat team, Saurashtra team, Baroda team, all top of the line teams in Ranji Trophy and producing champions. He's also a bit of a cricket freak. And going back to the great Vinu Mankar, who must be revered and respected more. And I also want to talk about this stock market scams if we can, because they were very fascinating. And again, a lot of us have this stereotype about
That chapter is
Gujaratis.
called Kem Cho, not Kem Cho. Kem Cho.
Yeah. But growing up, the stereotype of a Gujarati, your Gujarati friend is the stock market king. Just, especially in South Mumbai and affluent areas, it's always that. Who's this? Arey, Rajesh. Tell me what should I buy today? Have you noticed that? The stereotype is ridiculous sometimes.
Even funeral, I describe a funeral scene where everybody does namaste to anybody passes by, but they're actually discussing
The trade.
the stock market. Yeah.
Fair. We'll take a quick break and come back. Once again, the book is called The Gujaratis. It's exhaustively researched, and I, in my mind, it's a very neutral view. Even though he is Gujarati, he's highly critical at different points, as well as. So I think it's very balanced.
Thank you.
I can't praise you anymore, but I better praise you correctly because I have to go back home and my wife said, you better make him look great. He's one of the greatest writers of his time. So I have to do
That's
that.
very sweet of
Yeah,
Aisha.
yeah. They're all big fans of yours. Yeah, there you go. As is Amit Doshi, who will meet you in a little while. We'll take a break. कृपया ध्यान दीजिए ब्रोचा जनता पार्टी प्लीज लिसन स्मैश शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब as soon as you can. We have to make Cyrus says the biggest English language podcast in the country.
What is this break?
I have to do potty and then I will eat my breakfast in tuxedo.
Bhen chod.
What did you just say?
Madan Kumar Bhen chod. This is the stuff I want to see.
And I wanted to do pornography.
I will sell it to Pornhub. Sir, guy does not need to be in society.
I keep saying this. In Sweden, Lund is a name. Lund.
It's not land, it's loon.
तभी ये साइरस बरूचा ना साइरस बरूचा तो साइरस ब्रोचा का पॉडकास्ट देखने का अच्छा है टाइम पास.
Okay, the book is called The Gujaratis, and inside on page 77 is a check, promissory note for 501 rupees. So you buy the book and you get some money back. I'm just kidding. Buy the book. Great piece of work. Too much to talk about. We'll try and squeeze interesting things that I can remember off the top of my head. Let's go straight into corporate India, because I mentioned this just as we went into a break. They've batted way beyond the size and proportion of the community in terms of achievements in the corporate world, in finance, and anything related to that sphere. Diamonds, trade. So take us through that.
Yeah, so I think the Gujarati never wants to work for others and make them rich. They want to become rich.
This is why you mentioned they are never CEOs. You
of,
list
of big American
CEO,
companies.
MNCs.
We will have Sundar Pichai and you'll
Yeah.
have Satya Nadella
Not
and you'll have
Gujarati.
Indra Nui.
Not Gujarati.
None of them is a
Not-
Gujarati.
Nothing.
Correct. Gujaratis will become the CEOs of their own company.
Yeah. And then rehire Indra
And then-
Nui and say, I'll give you 10% more with stock options, which don't actually happen.
Yeah, well-
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but the point is exactly that. And in fact, there is a man called Vinay Parab who runs the Bhaidas Theatre here in Bombay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's Marathi, but his life is with Gujaratis because
They took over the
Bhaidas
theatre.
is the best theatre for Gujarati
Absolutely.
theatre, right? So he understands the society well. So I had gone for a long conversation with him. And he said that when two Marathi people meet, they said, "Apan kute naukri kartat? Where do you work?" And when two Gujaratis meet, he said, "Boss,
Business
apna
ho
dhando su hai. What is your business?"
Correct.
So doing something, lifting yourself up, borrowing money, they're never worried about borrowing money because they know that you have to then just keep paying interest.
Right.
And some of them never pay even that.
Which
That's a
today's
different-
financial experts don't say that being debt is the best thing in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Using debt rather than
rather
actually-
than equity and all
Yeah.
that. And the other thing they do, which is the whole part about the motel culture, is the bamboo network among the Gujaratis. One Patel comes there and everybody else gives him $1,500 or something for the down payment to have his first motel.
Correct.
And there's another story that I found from East Africa where it said that, when...
I want to talk about that also, Uganda, huh?
Yeah, so one of the East African business historians has actually written that when a Nigerian gets $10, he thinks he has 40 and spends it up. When the Gujarati has 10, he thinks he has nothing and he waits till he has $100 and then he starts, investing.
Also
in it.
mentioned this stereotype vis-a-vis the Marwari,
Yeah.
who's the other great in business when
Yeah,
it
yeah,
comes to
yeah.
it. But the spending culture being very
It's
different.
very Gujarati, yeah. I mean, absolutely. That too, there's another saying in that Gujaratis use that, Kamao Pardeshma, kharcho deshma.
you've
You
given that as
earn
well,
the
yeah.
dollars abroad
And
and then
spend,
spend
yeah.
it when you're back in India. Yeah. And right now with the way the rupee is, it's a great deal for someone coming with dollars.
Don't say that. But you're living in America, so you're getting the best of both worlds. We are stuck here.
I love it every time I get into Uber
Yeah.
and I come from Kemp's Corner to here in car and the bill is $3.25
Wow.
or something like that.
Do you tip?
Of course I do. Yeah. Sometimes the tip is the same as the thing.
Embarrassing. Quickly about Uganda, the way the community rebuilds itself.
Yeah.
What's the word for that? The ability that they can thrive all the time, no matter how bad the disaster is. So we're looking at almost like a genocide with the way they were thrown out of that country.
It was ethnic cleansing.
Ethnic
definitely.
cleansing,
Yeah.
better word. And then bounce back. Yeah, quickly.
No, they stayed away.
Yeah.
And in fact, they went to Vancouver and London.
Well, the guy, name I forget now, went to Saudi Arabia finally. I mean, he suffered so much.
Yeah.
And
Idi Amin finally goes to Saudi Arabia
Yeah.
and he's treated, and there's a doctor called Vasanti Makwana, not doctor, she's an anesthetist, anesthetic nurse rather. And she in the end, treats him, but before treating him, she says, "We are the people you kicked out, and we are saving your life now." And that was very moving story. And she said that I said, "Well, didn't you feel like any sense of revenge?" She said, "No, Gandhiji taught us not to do that." I mean, yeah. So there's a lot of that ethos comes through in that.
But again, let's talk about positive stereotypes. So here, the whole idea that they can build themselves up as a people is a great example for the rest of India.
So one of the interesting stories I've heard about the Gujaratis who went to Leicester and other parts of Britain after they were kicked out of Uganda is that the joke was that in their bedroom they were portrait of Idi Amin, because if he hadn't thrown them, they wouldn't have come to London and prospered and they would have remained in Africa running a store, whereas here now they have a business, So
Correct.
everyone...
Is it true that Leicester is dominated by
Leicester
Gujarati
has
Indians?
large number of Gujaratis, yeah.
So it's almost like you can hear the language everywhere you go.
Yeah, you do. Belgrave Road is the road, which is, and I'm told that during Diwali it is the brightest lit street in Europe at that time, yeah.
Poor David Garr, one of my favorite
I
cricketers
know.
from Leicester.
Yeah.
Stuck there. Now he's like, "Su chai, kon chai?" Yeah, Muki there. He's changed completely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that was, I just want to briefly get into the fact that they were, as a community, they're always able to rebuild.
Reinvent
and very
themselves.
positive. Very
And
positive
as the cover
attitude.
shows, there's this camel.
Oh, yeah.
and
Talk
in
about the camel, yeah.
Yeah, and the run of Kutch.
Yeah.
And it's a Maldhari who's going with his family because he's either pushed out because of the drought or pulled by the lure of the... And the number of people who have come with very little in their pockets, Nanji Kalidas Mehta, and building a huge empire in East Africa. But that many stories. And even those who came to Bombay, the first couple, the first Parsi, the first Lohana, who come from Saurashtra, again driven out by drought, and come to Bombay and build a fortune
And
for
almost everywhere where we have these tragic tales of being pushed out or drought or whatever, nature's way, they rebuild better.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the community has the ability to whatever God throws at them, they manage
And
to...
very often without the help of the state. Of the
Yeah.
Kutch, the revival of the Kutch after the earthquake, a lot of the credit goes to the NGOs and others who helped build it. But a lot of people just lifted themselves by
And
the
the people
bootstraps, and the
themselves, yeah.
donations from Gujaratis abroad.
Correct. Yeah. So there you go. So now we can...
Swavalambi, is a word. Or Atmanirbhar, as the Prime Minister says.
The
Yes.
Prime Minister's second favorite word. There's another one. Just kidding. Aap log Gujaratis, we can make these jokes, yaar. Let's talk a little bit now, slightly. We'll go into the stock market scans, but also the modern day heroes, if you want to call them that. Let's start with Dhirubhai. Dhirubhai just changed the game completely. Somewhere in the 80s, this guy comes with not that much money or anything, just a business mind.
No, he notices something that people have to become double income. When you become double income, maintaining your clothing becomes hard because you can't have everything of cotton because washing and therefore you need polyester. And so he invests in polyester. For that he invests in Bimal, first in Patal Ganga. From there he wants to make the chemicals that help make polyester. So he gets the purified terephthalic acid and that comes in. And then he goes to Hazira where he makes a lot of the petrochemicals. To do that, you need access to refined oil, and therefore he goes to Jamnagar. And, I mean, it all makes logical sense. And then, of course, oil exploration itself. But that entire story, if you went to Harvard Business School, you would have been told this is Michael Porter's theory of backward integration. Keep absorbing the costs and keep having something on scale.
So you removed all the vendors in a sense, everything is you.
Everything is you, and you build so much, and then you become... the supplier of those chemicals for other people who then use your materials and become kind of beholden to you. So you create a mast and you keep going further and further up the chain.
This is a self-taught man.
It's a self-taught man because
No
he was
MBA,
in Aden.
nothing.
He was
Yeah.
in Aden and he wanted to have an oil company and finally managed to do it because he was working at a gas station in, I think, Shell, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, yeah.
Is where he had started out. And from that he builds his empire. And then, of course, his kids are the new generation kids. And so, therefore, they see telecoms and financial services. And then it becomes the proper conglomerate.
What is the story about Anil Ambani that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting story because I went to a business school in America and I had a professor called Bill Joyce. And he told me that, and my school was called Tuck at Dartmouth College. And he used to teach at Wharton. And he said that, I was at Wharton and I had a student called Anil Ambani. I said, you mean Ambani? He said, yeah, Ambani. So I said, Anil Ambani. And he said, he was the brightest student I've ever had.
Wow.
And I have very high expectations of my Indian students. So at least I didn't let the site down. I probably didn't get as high a grade as Mr. Ambani did, but I did reasonably well to, pass my course with good honors and all that. So my point is that, these were smart kids and they had spotted opportunities at the right
Anil
time.
also, lesser known in a sense at the moment still, but apparently he's on his way back, came up to like the world number 6 richest man.
At one point,
At
yeah.
one point. I know these are notional things, but that's incredible.
And a lot of that wealth that we talk about is actually, I'm not calling it paper wealth, but it's a market cap wealth.
Fair, but I mean...
Because if you
how
were to
else do
cash...
we-
No, but if you try to liquidate...
we don't. That's never going to really happen.
That's
So
never
how do
going to
we-
happen.
how do we do
Absolutely.
it?
Absolutely. You raise further debt on the strength of that equity. That's what you do.
And we look at it, that's why we should always give a date to it. In 2017, on March 5th, this was the guy with the fifth, largest income in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the
assets.
exact ranking, but
Yeah.
he was...
I think it's 6. I think you mentioned it also. So Dhirubhai does well. Mukesh and Anil take it even further. Again, we are coming back to the fact that the Gujarati DNA. Okay, again, this is a very positive stereotype. The ability to figure things out.
Yeah.
What does the market want? Obviously, there's a genius in that which perhaps a lot of people don't understand.
And find out where the value is and capture that value, that sweet spot. Yeah. I mean, they're not unique. I mean, Sindhi businessmen are, business people are as
Let's
good.
go to Azim
Marwadis
Premji.
are as good. Azim Premji, yeah.
Who, again, Gujarati stock, different religion, Gujarati stock. You
Tatas,
mentioned the Tatas,
Godrej, Vadia.
And I'm just repeating like a...
No, I want you to feel good. I want to mention all these
of
great
course.
Parsis.
See, I didn't want to mention it, but the Parsis being such a small community, they really punch above their weight.
Absolutely, absolutely.
People can't deny
Absolutely,
that.
yeah. Even Aspi Adjania, the famous boxer, he also punched above.
Yeah, homie's dad.
I see.
He was a
okay.
what?
He was involved with the Bombay Boxing Federation.
Yeah, he was in charge of it.
Yeah. That's why when you mentioned punch above the weight, I thought I'll bring a Parsi.
Captain Aspi Adajani, yes, a lovely guy. I had my first drinking session with him. We were underage. His son, homie, is a famous filmmaker now.
I see.
Yeah, and only Parsi family we can drink underage.
Yeah, of course.
It was a different India. Now, don't do all this rubbish.
Chhato Paani.
Yeah. So we'll leave the Parsi. You do another book on the Parsi. It will look like this glorification is going on. Dhirubhai, Azim Premji, Gautam Adani.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned, which I didn't know, and we spoke offline about it. 2611, he was.
He was in the Taj, and I mean he has a very philosophical look about it. The God will look after and all. And
apparently he
manages to get out safely.
But is it true he tells everyone that we will survive this?
Yeah, he does tell everyone. This
stellar-
is from accounts I've read because he has never publicly
this is true
spoken
leadership
about.
qualities, I mean,
No, it's a leadership
give the devil his due.
To be calm.
To be calm
at
under
a situation
pressure,
like that requires enormous guts.
Yeah. No, tying this up again to their performance in life. The fact that under severe physical...
And have a karmic belief, that you're going to come
Super
out of this somehow.
confident.
Yeah. No, that's something definitely worth admiring. Yeah.
I think he'll sponsor the show now. I got him or Anil for sure. Mukesh, I don't know. I haven't said good enough things. You need to increase the Mukesh bait.
No, he called his father a very simple man. That famous story about Dhirubhai and Bobby Ghosh, my friend.
Oh, gotta tell that story. Please tell that story.
My friend Bobby Ghosh was with Business World magazine, and I was at India Today at that time, Nariman Point, circa 1988-89 I'm talking about. And Bobby had to interview Dhirubhai. And Dhirubhai said, do you want to have some dinner? So Bobby got very, excited that, I'm going to get
and
some nice...
Just mention Nariman Point.
Nariman Point. So they were at Nirmal building. The Reliance office was Nirmal
Correct.
building. Business World was Atlanta. We were at Jolly Maker. So we were all within walking distance of each other. So Bobby and Dhirubhai decide to go for a walk. While they're going for a walk, Bobby still thinks that they will now turn right quickly and go into the Oberoi. But instead, he calls a Singh Chana wala and asks him exactly what kind of Singh Chana to be made with what kanda to know. And he does that for both of them.
Fair.
And then, they are having it. And then Dhirubhai goes and reaches for his pocket and realizes that he hasn't brought his wallet.
This is how the rich remain rich.
So he asked Bobby, do you have a wallet?
Paiso.
So Bobby ended up buying a Singh Chana ka meal for Dhirubhai.
For both of them. One for he didn't even want it in the first
And he was a
place.
journalist.
Yeah.
They're standing in front of the Oberoi. I must be.
He and a billionaire, poor struggling journalist, millionaire, go for a walk in Nariman Point, and the journalist pays for the meal, and that's how you know you're with the genius.
Yeah, and then when Bobby, not grumblingly, but he humorously recount the story to Mukesh, and Mukesh said that yes, my father was a very simple man.
And you said Mukesh also is not famous for carrying money on him.
Well,
Not that he would
a lot
in
of people at that level
Yeah.
don't do that,
Yeah.
because they have always got somebody else. So he may not have a wallet with him. And
I think
so on.
Dhirubhai's Zamana was different, so he would walk alone and all that. Now they've got their cohort, so it's impossible.
And then they need protection. I mean, let's be honest. If any of them ever, God forbid, ever gets kidnapped or something like that, it's going to be a major problem.
I promise you, I cannot kidnap them because I don't keep undios. I don't have that in the house. I don't want trouble later. Gujarati demands for food, and again you mentioned that wherever they go, the Gujarati is with you on the flight or whatever because the food is with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thepla, the first thing you get offered is thepla and khakra.
Did you? Was it Gujarat the acronym that you did? GUJU?
Yeah, that's from that film Kal Ho Na Ho. G for Gathia, U for Undiu, J for Jamwanu, J for Jamnagar, U Undiu. That's how the song.
Undiu.
And the Ambani family performed that song in Anant Ambani's wedding.
My God.
Recently.
For a
you
man-
you have that video. I think Salman Khan also may have been dancing
I
with
can't
them.
believe a erudite writer like yourself was watching that entire wedding start to finish. A man of letters,
Purely-
a man of learning, a man of literature.
Purely for social observation and learning.
So that's the Gujarati in you who was just fascinated by.
Yeah. I also saw this khichdi that the elephant ate, which that journalist, journalist was.
But what was it actually?
I have no idea.
They
Don't
just-
want to know. But you know what Gujaratis call risotto, na? Videshi khichdi.
Oh. It's not completely off the mark, I guess.
Yeah.
No?
And what is pizza? Kadak uttapam.
Pizza was hijacked by Gujarat.
You know the Jasu Benno pizza na, in Gujarat?
nahi.
It's basically a bhakri. On that you put butter, you put Amul cheese. Amul, nothing else. Only Amul cheese.
But I also like Amul cheese, I'm sorry.
Maggi tomato ketchup and thodu shak. The vegetables you like and put it in the oven and that's called Jasu Benno pizza.
God
And
bless
Gujaratis swear
Jasu
by
Bhai.
it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Pizza Hut in Ahmedabad will have to launch it.
I'm telling you, they think it's a piece of satire, we're making fun. But that Amul cheese is something difficult to get here.
Yeah.
You can travel the world and have all the great cheeses, and I can't even pronounce them. Amul
There are
cheese is very
Gujarati
tasty.
stores in Queens from which I get it in America.
There you go. See,
Yeah.
I'm not the only one. A lot of us who are raised on Amul cheese, we love it on anything.
Yeah,
This is the way it
absolutely.
works.
Yeah.
Amul, sponsor the program.
I've written about Amul.
You mentioned Anand. Yeah, exactly.
I've mentioned Dr. Kurian and Tribhuvan Das Patel, who actually started Amul.
Dr. Kurian is almost like a Gujarati, even though he's Malayali descent, because he's in Anand and he created the biggest milk hub of India.
He made
till
India
today.
self-reliant in milk.
Yeah. And then the social justification involved in that, not just the spread of entrepreneurship
And the cooperative spirit, and not creating it like a capitalist
For
venture,
himself, yeah.
but bringing everybody in. It was a
There you
great
go.
thing. Yeah.
That's when you mix a Mallu and a Gujju, we get this social justification and money.
Yeah, absolutely.
No criticism.
Yeah.
Quickly, if we can get into, I know, very quickly. Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. I know we've done a lot of praising and all, but we've had these two big scams in my lifetime.
Harshad Mehta one.
and Ketan Parekh, of course. Very quickly, if we can we've spoken about Harshad Mehta before, but when he started, it was unbelievable. Like, he was like the biggest celebrity of India for a little while. And in our part of the world, urban
First
India...
to buy Lotus, I believe, in India.
Lexus.
Lexus.
It was such a big thing. It was bigger than the Bollywood cars because we would know he was passing. Lexus, Abigail, Lexus. Everybody would look. Yeah. No, it's true. Huh? It was a
No,
huge
but he was
celebrity.
very good at spotting the inefficiencies of the paper-based banking system. So the papers would come here and papers would go there, and in between there would be a gap of 3 or 4 days. And he knew how to speculate and play on that, and also at the same time to create notes promising something and hoping that the share price will keep rising and he'll be able to sell off and pay off the debt that he had to. And like all Ponzi schemes, somewhere it has to break.
It
and
catches up
That's
with
what
you.
happened.
It catches up with you. Ketan Parekh?
So, something similar. He had what were called K10 stocks. 10 stocks in which he speculated in a regular way. And he basically made sure that,
Push
those
the market up.
would get
Yeah.
small cap and mid cap, not the biggies.
Yeah.
And that's how he had a
And
very
again, the
successful
market,
trade.
the bottom fell out of it at
And
some
then
point.
bottom falls out. I mean, that inevitably happens. Yeah.
This is the
And even the Nirav Modi story was something similar. That,
Nirav Modi borrowed the money from...
borrowed the money by claiming that he had given the collateral, and that original collateral wasn't there. And so he keeps reissuing the promise. And then,
So against no collateral, they pretended there was collateral.
Yeah, and I mean, he was servicing the loan to the extent he could.
The bank was involved.
And
yeah.
the bank, but someone in the bank was involved.
Yeah.
That person retired. The new person who came went looking for the collateral and doesn't find it. And that's why PNB.
That's why never get a new banker, because they are very ethically upright. You have to wait 3-4 years for the system to overtake them and cleanse them completely. And then they are ready for India. Am I right to say this?
Possibly.
Huh? Possibly.
And Bija
So.
there's another Rupal Ben, I think is the name, who was the one because of which everybody in India needs a KYC certificate now. Because she made Benami applications for initial public offerings. And those initial public offerings, she would corner a lot of shares, get a lot of them, sell at the right time, and made huge amounts.
So this headache of KYC all the time is because of her?
Well, the law came because of her. Because what she did was that she again put out an ad saying that, come and for the price of 1 passport photo, you get 4. So everybody went to get their passport photos made. That gave her the photos to put on the application forms.
Superb.
Yeah.
What happened to her?
No, I didn't follow through on that, but obviously she was caught out, and she may have served her time in the end. Yeah.
And now she's back. You can contact her through IVM. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So cricket, if you can squeeze cricket in for a second. Towards the end of the book, you mentioned the cricket heroes. All the sporting heroes. They're also, I think, the table tennis stars, a couple as well.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few, but
Farooq Khudaiji and
Farooq
KT
Khudaiji and his
Chapman.
wife.
Dilip Sampat also.
Dilip Sampat.
So it was not a Parsi monopoly. I'm just telling
No,
you.
not a Parsi monopoly at all. I accept that. But in cricket, there were plenty of Parsis. We'll quickly go down the list. I want to
The first ever Test match team had 2 Parsis.
Yeah,
you know?
the first
E.
cricket
Palia
team
and
that went
Sam
to
Kohler.
England was a Parsi team. Duke's team.
Yeah, and the first team did very badly, but the second team
did better.
performed very
But
admirably.
I think they still lost more than they won, but not bad because what do we
Yeah,
had no
at that time
culture.
nobody was playing. And Parsis believed in playing cricket because they thought it would make them be taken more seriously by the English, who they admired a lot.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with admiring the good things of English.
You mentioned also how they've kept Apri Daina and all that is in the Queen's picture, Apri Rani.
Apri Rani
all that.
and all that.
Which
But the other
which
thing
is not untrue, huh?
No.
There are quite a few.
Yeah. But the other interesting thing about cricket is patron. That Australian writer called Richard Cashman has written a book on Indian cricket called Patrons, Players and Crowds. And it looks at the history of Indian cricket. If you look at the patronage, so much of the patronage came from Gujarati princes and Parsi businesses, early Parsi. They used to support the cricket team.
Correct.
Players, again, from Ranji onwards. I mean, Ranji didn't play for India, he played for England. But then Dulip, his nephew.
Dulip played for both.
Yeah. So you have that coming out. And then after that, when you move further down, then, the crowds. I mean, extremely passionate. I mean, that's why the world's biggest stadium is in Ahmedabad.
Correct.
It used to be Melbourne, but now it is Ahmedabad. And to the
although the figures are a little exaggerated. Every time there's 118,000, I don't think that's correct.
No, that may not be. I mean, I wouldn't know. Yeah. But the other interesting thing about that page is also the companies. Mafatlals had a team that was so good. Nirlon, I was just
five Indian cricketers. Sunny and
Sunny was there.
Sandeep
Patil was there, and Mafatlal had Ashok Mankad and Mahesh Sampat and Eknath Solkar. They all played for them.
There were serious corporate tournaments. My God, and they were presently playing for India or just retired. It was like they were all good. Yeah.
And the Australians also, if you look, I mean,
your favorite Karsin Ghavri.
Yeah. I mean, and there are Gujarati cricketers who have played for other countries. Deepak Patel in New Zealand, Hashim Amla for South Africa.
Yes, very much. You mentioned them, Gujarati descent. Also, let's quickly mention Vinu Mankad. I'm trying to just squeeze that out because arguably the greatest cricketer of the first era of Indian cricket.
Absolutely.
Lala Manat, of course, a legend, but I would say in talent.
Yeah,
But
and that famous Mankad test where he scored 72 and 184 at Lords, and then he gets 5 for something. And I mean, on all 5 days he was on the field, and they called it the Mankad's test.
Yeah. And again, imagine we were still a poor country in terms of cricket. We didn't have the kind of infrastructure we have.
And
today.
later, brilliant coach at Hindu Gymkhana, where people used to go to learn from him. Solkar's study was the son of a groundsman at the Gymkhana, and Vinu Mankad spots Eknath Solkar, and India got its greatest fielder of all time and a great all-rounder. But an opening bowler, Solkar and Abid Ali used to be and he used to get Jeff Boycott out.
Sunny also sometimes.
Sunny also.
Take a shine of the ball.
Gavaskar and Solkar used to bowl 2 overs each, and then Bedi and Prasanna Haryana would come on, yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. Wow. So the man knows his cricket, that's for sure. But going back to the Gujarati.
And now look at the team. You have the Hardik Patel, you have Cheteshwar Pujara, not active right now, but still
the Pandya
scoring
brothers.
lots. The Pandya brothers.
Cheteshwar Pujara just
Hardik Pandya, sorry, not Patel.
The Pandya brothers, Krunal as well.
Yeah.
Who was in the team and very much there in the IPL. But what about presently?
Jasprit Bumrah, I would call him Gujarati.
Jasprit Bumrah is 100% Gujarati. He's of Sikh descent, but he's born and bred there.
Yeah.
And he speaks perfect Gujarati.
Yeah.
So 100%. And that's the system that created
Irfan Pathan, Yusuf Pathan.
Yusuf.
Yeah.
What about Jadeja?
Jadeja.
There's another Dharam Singh Jadeja who's about to make the team as well, who's exactly the same name, left arm.
And I'm hoping there
Akshar.
was Akshar, of course, and there is a Parsi bowler who almost made it,
but
Nagwaswala.
They took him to England, but
I know.
now he's faded out a little bit.
I
now.
see.
Yeah,
Because since Farooq Engineer, we haven't had a Parsi in the
Zubin
Indian
Bharucha
team.
was right there, but they didn't play him in the 11 finally.
Yeah.
But he was right at the cusp. But
Yeah,
it was that golden era, na, where you have from Shiva, Gambhir, Sachin, Rahul Dravid, Lakshman, Ganguly.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
very tough. Amol Mazumdar couldn't get in. And,
Yeah.
You
But there was a time when you heard Umrigar, Contractor, all of them were in the team at the same
Rusi
time.
Modi, Rusi Surti.
Modi, Rusi Surti.
Who we left out? There are a couple more for sure. Yeah, but that's it. And Dinah Idolji.
Dinah Idolji, we can't forget.
Yeah.
And Colonel Kem Mistry, all those years ago.
All the way back.
There was a poem about him.
What is it?
Jamsu to jam jevo lagyo, Mistri thi Maharaja bhagyo. This was in the 1933 team of MCC. So Jamsu was RJ Jamshedji.
Oh.
He was like Yama. Jamsu to jam jevo lagyo. Mistri, Colonel Mistri thi Maharaja bhagyo. The British king ran away from him.
My God.
This was the song that my uncle used to. He used to know the whole song, but I remember only those
Two lines.
Two
yeah,
that couplet,
lines.
yeah.
Okay, we're running out of time. Can we squeeze in the AMAs?
Yeah, we can extend a little while.
Okay.
There are no pretty AMAs, but I would like to ask.
Okay, ask the question.
Yeah. So Baroda has a great history of not history. The modern Baroda has the egg culture.
Egg culture.
Egg culture.
Uh-huh.
So I want to know how is the geocultural history of that?
Idu.
How come it's that prominent?
I think I'm completely speculating why the egg culture is important, because I think there's still a greater taboo to eat actual meat, right?
Yeah.
So
It's the halfway house.
so going out and eating kebab, you're worried about it. But egg is, it's almost like pudlu, as we call it in Gujarati, pudu. And I think there's a lot of and you can.
It's neither heaven nor hell.
It's,
Somewhere
yeah,
in the middle.
absolutely. It's that in between stage, and it is a brilliant taste. Yeah, I mean, I love eggs. So
Half fries or boiled?
no, I like all kinds scrambled. I like that we used to have in Sydenham canteen something called Mauritian egg, which was tomatoes, mirchi, and kanda.
Salil is an international Gujarati. That's a different group altogether. So there,
No, Sydenham was a Bombay college, yeah.
Yeah, true. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, there's like, for me growing up, there are two types of Gujaratis. The one type is the avatar, which is in the house. And once you leave the house, you're a different guy altogether. I mean, I had so many people who come to my house, because my house is non-vegetarian primarily. And boom. But in the house, I think that continues. That for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
not just, I think a lot of Indians are like that. They're conservative at home and then they change once they leave.
Yeah.
Second AMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The history of masalas, basically, there has always been a Bombay, unsaid thing that we always have sweet food more.
So an interesting observation people have made is that having sweet food is basically a North Gujarat phenomenon because of Rajasthani cooks, who tend to do it because of having imitated some. But if you go to Saurashtra and Kutch, the food is not necessarily very sweet. If you have save tametanu shak, it's almost like penne arabiata, but not penne, but instead you have save on it. It's very tikkutam. You have marchana bhajia.
Penne is chicken.
You have marchana bhajia. You have other fafdas with a lot of mirchi in it. And even Kutchi food is not necessarily sweet, with a lot of green chilies, and onion is always part of it. So yes, Gujarati food tends to be sweet. The dals and kadhis are sweet. I don't deny that at all. But and in vegetables, we use a lot of jaggery, gor. So that also does distort that. But if you look at undiyu is not sweet per se. There is, of course, the plantain is used in it. But you also have the muthias and other masalas in it.
Yeah.
I think what we like more than anything else is symphony of tastes in our mouth. And that's why you might have a sandwich with all kinds of layers.
Correct.
On
The
it,
most
which
sophisticated palate is the Indians. We pay for that. We have the most sophisticated palate. Indians, all generally, not just Gujaratis.
yeah.
So we pay for that because everywhere we go, you suddenly find it bland after some time.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, there are 9 masalas. There are 32 different gravies. There are all kinds of
dal,
chutneys.
the number of dals and the number of variations in which dals are made is also quite something.
There you go. Rich country in many ways. Huh. Last question from Suresh. Wants to know, because you mentioned symphony, what's your favorite music album? Or more importantly, favorite music genre?
I do like Indian classical. I mean, if you're going to go, I mean, I like sitar of Ravi Shankar and santoor of Shiv Kumar Sharma. That
It's more
kind
like a
of
hybrid classical. The-
No. Then it
the
is
popular-
Shakti. Then it is Shakti. I love Shakti. Zakir Hussain and Tim McLaughlin and Larry Coryell and all of that.
Oh, I didn't get that from you at all.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But no, I'm not a fan of the popular genre of music in
Bollywood?
Gujarat, which is, no, I love Bollywood.
Falguni Pathak is not mentioned.
No, Falguni Pathak is mentioned. There's a very brief reference to her, but there is. But what's crucial is that Sugam Sangeet is what Gujaratis like a lot,
Like,
you know, which are soft lullaby type song. That, I mean, I'm not a fan of.
Gujarati nataks, were you growing up?
Yeah, yeah.
The New Era School?
Yeah, I've acted in them.
You've acted in them.
I've
So you
acted for
enjoyed
INT.
all the Koila comedies also, the double
Yeah,
entendre and all that?
Paani Ma Padela
Yeah,
Parvez ji
that.
and all those plays I've seen. Adi Mashban, I've seen most of his
My
plays.
God, really?
Yeah.
Genius,
Lagnani
but-
Bedi.
Yeah.
So marriage is like handcuffs. Yeah.
Not untrue. Yeah. All right. So that's it. Salil, thank you so much for giving us your time. The book, let me just quickly mention it again. It's a biggish book, but it's really worth the read. And I do think it's a collector's item, so you have to keep it there. 55 million copies must be bought immediately.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for 55 million Gujaratis. Don't say 5 in one house. Doesn't matter. You have your own separate copy. I don't want people fighting later. Anil ji, Mukesh bhai, if you're listening, please, total discount apu? Total discount?
ચોક્કસ
Kitlo?
એ negotiate કરીશું
We'll
આપણે.
negotiate. Call on the special line that we've set up after the show's over. All right? Gautam Adani also.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want them to spend too much.
Yeah.
But they must keep it. It's a collector's item. Salil Tripathi's book, The Gujaratis, available quickly. Well, how do we get it online?
Through the bookstores. I mean, all the bookstores have them.
Okay. All
But
the various-
and it's also on Kindle. So if you don't, and I do hope that somebody feels it's worthwhile turning it into an audiobook, because I think some people have quite rightly said that because the font size is small and the book is heavy, the elderly would like to listen to it on their morning walks rather than actually sit down and read it. So I think that's a very good suggestion.
No harm, increase the market, but I do think that this is the kind of book that you need to read because, you just get more out of it. But fair enough, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We spread the word of the Gujarati. That's our job in modern India.
Yeah.
Salil, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Aujo.
Aujo.
Why don't we do this podcast like this? Let's speak of
Oh,
why?
We encourage them.
Come on, please. Cyrus, can you do the rest of it like this?
Other 20 seconds, 20
Then what they can do is
You
they can
brown! Just to change the mood.
yeah, exactly. Now they can play this minus into 2.
Yeah.
So now they can speak like they can play it normally.
The Waking of a Nation by Ram Madhwani and others. Names I can't say because it's difficult to say 4 S's. Mr. Srivastava's first name is?
Shantanu Srivastava, Shatrujit Nath.
Shatrujit
were my
Nath.
co-writers.
Were the co-writers. पेश करते हैं सोनी लिव पे The Waking of a Nation. Drum roll. Drum roll नहीं है तो just pretend ना. Like a college play. Drum roll is like. We've all done, those impressions of the Gandhi assassination and all that. Now, please, there's no disrespect, but they are just so badly acted in colleges and schools across the country.
Cyrus says every time, Cyrus says, जब ये कहे तुम सुनो, please.
तमीज से बात करना है ना, important people यार.